Did the live really capture me at the beginning while I was putting my shirt on? Good morning, good evening, and hello to everybody watching. Let me make sure that it is live for everybody around the country and the world. Thank you for tuning in. We have a lot to talk about today. Usually at the top of the show, I like to give people a minute or two to trickle in. But I appreciate you for being here with me because we have a lot to talk about. Our country is in a very bizarre state right now, and it is not for the weak of heart. There's a lot going on. Good evening. Welcome, your local Virgo. Thank you for being here. Appreciate your support. Folks, if you're just tuning in, give the video a like, make sure you're subscribed, share this video with one friend, and we're going to have a great show today. We have a lot to talk about. Welcome from Raleigh, North Carolina. Great place. Hope you're enjoying some Bojangles for me. We love Raleigh. Love Raleigh. Okay. Make sure everybody's got it. Okay. It looks like people are trickling in. Fantastic. So, oh, my Amazon person's finally here. Give me 1 second, everybody. Show will begin in 1 second. I'm back. Had to give an Amazon guy a code. So let's dive right in. Of course, we'd be remiss not to show Miss Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, our favorite Caroline Leavitt. She had a lot to talk about today, and believe me, you might have seen clips of this, you might have seen a little piece here and there, but you're going to want to watch this because every single time she goes up to that podium, it seems like it can't be more overtly fascist and far right and extremist, but it gets worse and worse as the weeks go on. And you can see a trend here towards authoritarianism. So I'm going to go ahead and let you see for yourself just how toxic things are really getting in this White House. By the way, of course, this is on the heels of a horrible shooting in Minnesota where people are already blaming transgender Americans. They're saying transgender this, transgender that. It's abhorrent. It's un-American. But let's take a look here at Caroline. And let me know at any point if anybody has trouble hearing anything. Obviously loud siren right now, but yeah.
Good afternoon. Good to see all of you. I want to begin today's briefing by addressing the horrific shooting that took place yesterday at the Annunciation Catholic Church in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where a deranged shooter opened fire during morning mass, killing an innocent 8-year-old and 10-year-old. 14 other children and 3 adults were also injured during this horrible tragedy. This was the first morning mass of the school year for these beautiful, innocent children, and this sacred religious service was desecrated by an evil monster. We are all eternally grateful to the heroic law enforcement officers and first responders whose courage and swift response aided all of those impacted by this horrible tragedy. As Director Kash Patel confirmed yesterday.
Meanwhile, Trump's got the National Guard picking up trash in D.C. They're picking up trash in D.C. because there's nothing for them to do there. He's disrespecting the military once again by having them work as garbage people, even though that's not their job. And he's probably disrespecting, people who work in garbage because he's having the military do it instead. It's really sad.
The FBI is currently investigating this shooting as an act of domestic terrorism and a hate crime targeting Catholics.
Notice, by the way, how they always are quick to investigate for domestic terrorism when it has to do with Catholics, Christians, white children that were affected. But anytime it's, a white person murdering, let's say, brown and black people, it's never investigated as a hate crime under this administration.
President Trump signed a proclamation yesterday following his call with the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, acknowledging the victims and their families and directing flags to be flown at half-mast. President Trump and the First Lady encouraged the entire nation to join all of us in praying for the victims and their families as they face unimaginable grief and loss. The White House and the FBI will continue to provide further updates as they become available. I also have a quick scheduling announcement for you today. The President will travel to New York City on September 22nd to address the United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday, September 23rd. On another matter, as Americans...
That's great. By the way, that could be where a lot of nations make their formal recognition of Palestine. Like we've seen, the UK, France, they're actually saying we will recognize Palestine as a state. And then, if Trump's going to be there, it's going to be the No New Wars president allowing Israel to finish the job, create Trump Gaza, the Trump Riviera of the Middle East, where Trump can build condos and casinos where people lived.
Make their Labor Day weekend travel plans. They will be able to enjoy 5-year low gas prices thanks to President Trump fully unleashing American energy dominance. President Trump ended Joe Biden's Green New Scam policies and is delivering on his promise to make America affordable again. These savings at the pump are giving everyday American families more room in their budgets at the end of each month, which is the exact opposite of what we saw under the previous administration. And as we commemorate Labor Day this year, we finally have a president who fights and delivers for the American worker every single day.
What did she just say? Trump delivers for the working class Americans? Can I run that back real quick? Because this is so abhorrent. Listen to this.
Previous administration. And as we commemorate Labor Day this year, we finally have a president who fights and delivers for the American worker every single day.
What is Trump doing every single day to fight for the American worker besides making it impossible for other countries to mail us stuff? Because right now, countries around the world are deciding that it is no longer feasible to send parcels to the United States thanks to Trump's tariffs. What about the fact that every U.S. company is now preparing to raise prices for their consumers because the parts that they get overseas are now more expensive for the companies? What about the fact that Donald Trump promised to make life more affordable for Americans, but has never released a plan to address housing insecurity in this country? He's never addressed the fact that millions of young people are worried that they won't be able to afford homes. They'll never be able to afford home ownership. What about healthcare? Donald Trump said in 2015 he would have a plan to replace Obamacare. He said it would be better than Obamacare. Well, he said that plan would come in 2 weeks. It's been 10 years now. We've never heard Trump's healthcare plan. The only thing related to healthcare that Trump has done is kick nearly 20 million Americans off of Medicaid. So you would think by kicking 20 million Americans off of Medicaid, he gave back to American workers in another form. But in reality, he added $4 trillion to the national deficit. At least they gave ICE hundreds of billions of dollars so that they're now paid higher than the Marines. Great work, Mr. President. You're a real working class hero.
President Trump believes that American workers are the heart and soul of our economy and our national identity, which is why he's championed an agenda that puts them first always. For decades, the hardworking men and women of our country who built the greatest nation in world history were sold out by selfish, greedy, short-sighted globalists who put our country on a path to economic and cultural ruin.
She's just saying buzzwords at this point. She has no idea what she's talking about. She's like, these globalists. Caroline, you are a traitor.
They hollowed out our factories and towns and betrayed the American working class by shipping jobs overseas and importing millions of low-wage migrants to replace American workers. Under President Trump, this national disgrace is over. American workers are, once again, being put at the center of national trade policy, and the dignity of American labor is being defended. As a result, President Trump has already brought in nearly $10 trillion in new private and foreign investments so that the top businesses in the world can create high-paying jobs in America and hire American workers to fill them. In fact, since President Trump took office, the economy has added more than 500,000 new jobs to the workforce. In a stark reversal from the Biden administration, all of that job creation has been driven by private sector growth, and all employment gains have gone to native-born Americans. Wages for blue-collar workers are now rising at the fastest rate in the past 60 years. And the average American worker has already seen a $500 wage increase this year alone.
Wow, $500. So glad that people are going to get $500 after all this, but let's not think about how they're going to pay more through tariffs and how housing is still increasing and healthcare is unaffordable and life in general is just unaffordable. But hey, you helped give people $500. Great work.
Thanks to the largest middle tax cuts ever signed into law by President Trump, with no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, Americans in all 50 states will keep more of their hard-earned money. The average American taxpayer will see a tax cut of nearly $4,000 because of these pro-growth provisions, according to analysis from the Nonpartisan Tax Foundation. In other news, President Trump
According to that same group she's talking about, the ultra wealthy in this country will disproportionately see the benefits from these tax cuts that Caroline Leavitt is trying to claim are helping the working class. The working class gets like this much of a tax cut, and then rich people in America, they get the real tax cut. They're the real benefits. And Trump will say, hey, well, we're giving you a tax cut for the working class, but it's all going to be repaid in the form of tariffs, health care, etc.
Continues to deliver on his promise to restore law and order to our nation's capital. Since President Trump's intervention, there have been more than 1,283 arrests right here in the District of Columbia. Total crime in D.C. is down 19%, and violent crime is down 30%. Carjackings in the district are down 67%. Homicides are down 57%. Robberies are down 40%. Motor vehicle thefts are down 32%. And assaults with dangerous weapons are down 23%. And property crime is down 18%.
If Trump was actually serious about stopping crime, wouldn't he go to some of these Republican-led states like Alabama, where the homicide rates are some of the highest in the nation? That's what doesn't check out. That's what doesn't pass the smell test, is that Donald Trump claims he's doing this to stop crime. Well, look at Chicago, for example. If you are preparing to do such a advanced operation, such a complicated mission to send National Guard troops into one of America's busiest cities, you would think that you would coordinate with the governor and the mayor and local law enforcement. You would think you would talk to the police in Chicago Police Department. But no, there's been no coordination. It's been all done in secret. It's been a huge surprise to everybody that he's been planning this for weeks. Well, it's not a surprise that this is what he's going to do, but the timing of it, it's a surprise because he's not actually informing Chicago leaders that it's coming now. So no, it's not really about solving crime, is it? Is it more about intimidating people in a Democrat city, in a Democrat state, letting them know that Donald Trump can hijack the military when he wants, and testing it out months before the midterm elections?
18%. These numbers prove the president's bold actions to make D.C. safe and beautiful again are working, just like he said they would. And that's why on Monday, the president took additional action to sign an executive order taking steps
On Monday, the president took a dick.
to ensure that cashless bail in Washington, D.C. is eliminated. For too long, D.C.'s reckless cashless bail policies have allowed dangerous criminals to be quickly released, which endangers everyone who lives in and visits our wonderful capital. No cash bail has also foolishly forced law enforcement to repeatedly arrest the same offenders over and over again, only for them to be released back into our nation's capital. This is the definition of insanity, and the president is seeking to end it. He also signed a separate executive order addressing the crime emergency in D.C. by instructing the National Park Service to hire additional United States Park Police officers to support public safety. and directing the U.S. Attorney's Office for D.C. to hire additional prosecutors to focus solely on violent and property crimes. So while liberal Democrats across the country continue to double down on their failed soft on crime approach, the American people, including local D.C. leadership, business owners, and residents, are rallying behind President Trump's crime crackdown. According to new polling, 81% of Americans say crime is a major problem in large cities across the country. And a clear majority of Americans believe the president's actions are justified and necessary to reduce crime in these cities. Indu Bhatia, who runs a liquor store a half mile from the White House here just down the street,
Just wait till you
is
hear
one
the
of those
Q&A from
Americans
today.
who are
It's
grateful for
absurd.
President Trump's public safety push. Indu recently told the New York Post that her store was robbed so many times that they had to spend exorbitant sums of money on security, jeopardizing her family's financial future. But thanks to President Trump's strong action, Indu said, quote, "All of my employees, including me, we feel much safer, and even our customers feel really happy when they walk into our store." And just yesterday, Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser credited President Trump for surging federal law enforcement personnel and said neighborhoods, quote, "feel and are much safer." We thank Mayor Bowser for her cooperation and her willingness to help us make D.C. safe and beautiful. This entire effort has vindicated what President Trump and law and order advocates have been saying for years, and this is our message to Americans in Democrat-run cities nationwide. Decline is a choice. You don't have to live in constant fear of being robbed, raped, or murdered. Your leaders are...
Decline is a choice. That should be like the new mantra of this entire MAGA movement. Like, you can choose to go along with this decline. America is a nation in decline under this administration. Decline is a choice, and we chose that, unfortunately.
lying to you, and they have been failing you for decades. The President Trump approach of upholding law and order by letting our brave men and women in blue actually do their jobs to agree.
Brave men and women in blue. You know, today they announced that Ashli Babbitt, the psychotic woman who tried to break through the window and get into the speaker's floor, you know, the floor of the Capitol. She tried to break through. She was the first one to try and breach through. And police at the Capitol, you know, rightfully so, they didn't know she was armed. They fired a shot. It was a fatal blow. She lost her life that day. And, you know, the saddest part is she lost her life at the hands of Donald Trump. She did Donald Trump's bidding, essentially. She's getting a funeral from the Air Force under Trump's command, and they're going to be giving her military honors. Seriously, military honors. But nothing for the police officers who were beaten brutally by these psychopaths. Nothing for the Capitol Police, the security guards, etc. Nothing. But let this woman, Caroline, tell you that this party is the Blue Lives Matter party. It's a shame.
Aggressively fight crime works. In just a few weeks, President Trump has done more for D.C. residents than Democrats did in 50 years. And this can be replicated in other crime-ridden cities across the nation. As President Trump has said, all of these elected officials in charge have to do is pick up the phone and ask for the president and the federal government's help. President Trump doesn't care if they are a Republican or a Democrat leader. He wants Americans to be safe and for every law-abiding American citizen across the country to be able to thrive in their city and in their community. With that, I'll take questions. Here in our new media seat today,
Here we go.
have social media influencer, content creator, Brandon Tatum. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us today. Why don't you kick us?
Remember, the new media seat is whatever far-right extremist is currently going viral on TikTok for pushing lies, propaganda, etc. It's a very scary thing that this continues to happen. But let's hear from today's new media personality.
Off.
Well, Caroline, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And on behalf of everybody that follow me, the millions of people that follow me, I want to say thank you for making the sacrifice and dealing with so.
What a shameless self-shout out. By the way, millions of people follow me, and to the millions of people that are following me, by the way, did you guys catch that part? I'm a huge creator.
One of the most disingenuous people on planet Earth at times. I have two questions. The first question is associated with the shooting that occurred the other day. And I want to ask the question of, we know that it's not a gun thing. Any rational person knows it's not a gun thing. We know it's
What is this, a question or a fucking statement? By the way, how can you sit there and say any rational person knows this isn't a gun thing when a majority of Americans agree wholeheartedly this is a gun thing? This is an issue that MAGA actually is in the minority on. If you poll Americans, you'll find that actually most Americans want sensible gun safety reform. So for them to skew the reality is just so abhorrent, especially less than 24 hours after these children are slain. Once again, twisting reality. Once again, so detached from real life. Most people would agree it's not a gun thing. Just get to your fucking question because you're already wrong.
a mental health issue. So I want to know from you, what is President Trump?
Sorry, I have to interrupt. It is a mental health issue too, sure. But then why does this administration continuously defund mental health programs across the nation? The big beautiful bill stripped mental health funding. Doge was always looking for things like mental health funding to cut. Absolutely pathetic.
The White House going to do to address mental health issues around the country associated with these shootings? And the second thing is Chicago. You know, anybody with, and I say with a connected brainstem, knows that Chicago's crime is out of control. And young black men are getting killed, laying dead in the middle of the streets every single day in Chicago. No president has addressed any of these issues. And so what is the White House going to do to address issues in their capacity to deal with the conflict and violence in Chicago?
Sure.
It's funny because they're really setting the stage for this invasion of Chicago. And they're going to do this for a few days and weeks now, continue to talk about how out of control Chicago is. They do this over time. They condition you into thinking that this is necessary. And we know Chicago has crime. Every big city in America has crime, by the way, including red states. You should see places like Dallas, even Raleigh, North Carolina, someone in my chat, you know, more of a purple state, but, you know, a very Republican state. North Carolina is in the South, and even cities in the South have crime. It's detached from reality to suggest that only cities that voted Democrat have crime. And Chicago has issues, but sending the National Guard into Chicago without coordinating at all with Chicago PD is going to lead to riots. It's going to lead to people getting killed, literally. And some, you know, poor National Guard troop is going to make a mistake and they're going to shoot their gun because Donald Trump is now arming these people. And someone's going to lose their life and someone's going to get court-martialed and things are going to get out of hand. All they are waiting for is for one riot to happen to point their guns on American citizens. They're already calling us the enemy within. They're already saying that Democrats are traitors and we're scum and we are, you know, poison to the United States of America. There's a cold civil war already happening. There's no more working across the aisle. They already say that the liberals, the leftists, the Democrats, whatever, anybody who's not part of the MAGA cult is not American.
Well, to your first question about this shooting in Minnesota, right now, the administration is focused on helping the people of Minnesota. It's been less than a day, of course, since this tragedy happened. We have federal law enforcement on the ground assisting local law enforcement. This investigation is ongoing. There's still a lot of facts to understand about these circumstances, and so we're going to continue to do that. As for Chicago and cracking down on crime, it is a priority of this administration to ensure that American cities are safe again, and I'm so glad that you brought up the crime in Chicago, because we've been seeing the governor of Illinois parading out there saying that there's nothing wrong with Chicago. It's a great place to live. There's no crime there. He doesn't need President Trump's help. Well, I think the residents of Chicago beg to differ, and the statistics beg to differ. And I'll just share a few of those statistics with all of you. For 13 consecutive years, Chicago has had the most murders of any U.S. city.
Even if that's correct, the way she's framing it, wasn't Donald Trump president for part of that? What did he do? And again, you're seriously going to send the National Guard into Chicago? You haven't even talked to Chicago PD? So you're just going to be dropping in our service members? Such disrespect for our service members, by the way, to just drop them in there, let them just get spit on. unfortunately, people are going to blame the National Guard and people are going to spit on the National Guard. And in reality, most of them don't want to be there. They know that their whole life could be ruined if they don't follow orders. This might not be what they signed up for when they enlisted. They normally were planning on just serving their country. So it's a shame. It's a shame, and it's another step towards fascism.
This is J.B. Pritzker's legacy, by the way. For 7 consecutive years, Chicago has had the highest murder rate among U.S. cities with more than 1 million people. In 2024, just last year, Chicago's murder rate per capita was 3 times higher than Los Angeles and nearly 5 times higher than New York City. That's more than double the murder rate in Islamabad and nearly...
They must have coordinated, like she knew that this guy was going to prompt something about Chicago. And so she had all these notes ready. This is all part of their strategic plan to prepare for a punishment of Chicago. That's what it is. They're punishing Chicago. They're punishing Chicago for being liberal. And so look, just watch the way she speaks. She had all these notes ready about Chicago because she knew the new media seat was going to set this up for her.
15 times more than Delhi. Out of Chicago's 147,899 reported crimes this year, that's how many crimes have been reported in Chicago since January 1st. There have only been arrests in 6.
Why is she smiling so much? It's so sick. It's like so sickening. It's like, even if you were telling the truth, which you're not, why do you smile when you're talking about all these murders happening in Chicago? It's almost like you're celebrating the fact that murders are happening in a democratic city.
15% of them. These numbers are unacceptable. There have been more illegal guns recovered in Chicago than in New York City and Los Angeles combined. The number of reported motor vehicle thefts last year was more than double the number in 2021. And Chicago has also, just like DC, come under scrutiny over discrepancies in its homicide data reporting. So as bad as these numbers are, perhaps they are even worse. And this is Governor Pritzker's legacy. He should put politics aside. He should pick up the phone and call this president, who would be more than happy to do right by law-abiding American residents in the city of Chicago, and we hope that he will.
Why are they like begging Pritzker to call and beg for Trump to come when they're going to send the troops no matter what? What is the point of that? You're just proving to us that the troops are not needed. They're not necessary. They're not helping anybody. It's like you're not even good at lying. You're not even good at spewing this propaganda. You're doing it wrong.
Gabe, and thanks for being here, Brandon. Gabe.
Carolyn, thank you so much. First, on the firing of the CDC director, first,
Sure.
Who will replace her? And then also, overnight, the White House said that she did not align with the president's agenda. Dr. Menard's attorneys say that she refused to rubber stamp unscientific, reckless directives and fire dedicated health experts. What specifically did she do wrong?
Look, what I will say about this individual.
By the way, for anybody who's unsure what's going on here, they just fired the head of the CDC. And this person, they appointed this person not even a few months ago. So they just fired their own appointee. And yet they talk about incompetence. They talk about woke, DEI, etc. They can't even hire people correctly. They just fired somebody. And now the Trump administration is going to encroach even more on public health. So later, I want to show you there's a walkout happening at the CDC right now. People are walking out. They're striking because they are saying, you know what? We are not going to be run by RFK Jr. and his staff, who basically believe in Facebook conspiracy theories about public health. RFK Jr. was talking today saying, well, young people, I see them walking around the airport and they don't look healthy because they have no social life and they're exposed to weird chemicals. It's like, dude, a worm ate your brain, man. And you are literally on the record saying that COVID was created in a lab to spare Jews and Chinese people only, and everybody else was supposed to get it. By the way, I'm Jewish. I got COVID. What do you got to say about that, Bobby? It got me good, by the way. By the way, I'm double, quadruple vaxxed. I've got all the vaccines. I'm fine. I'm fine, baby. Some people think you get the vaccine, you're going to like turn to dust. I'm stronger than ever.
Is that her lawyer's statement made it abundantly clear themselves that she was not aligned with the president's mission to make America healthy again. And the secretary asked her to resign. She said she would, and then she said she wouldn't, so the president fired her, which he has every right to do. It was President Trump who was overwhelmingly reelected on November 5th. This woman has never received a vote in her life, and the president has the authority to fire those who are not aligned with his mission. A new replacement will be announced by either the president or the secretary very soon.
They announced it. It's like RFK Jr.'s top staffer. So basically, RFK Jr. is going to be essentially running another agency.
And the president and Secretary Kennedy are committed to restoring trust and transparency and credibility to the CDC by ensuring their leadership and their decisions are more public-facing, more accountable, strengthening our public health system, and restoring it to its core mission of protecting Americans from communicable diseases, investing in innovation to prevent, detect, and respond to future threats. That's the mission of the CDC, and we're going to make sure that folks that are in positions of leadership there are aligned with that mission.
RFK Jr. literally tells the American people that autism is caused by vaccines. What? What? By the way, vaccines are so demonized and so politicized. Can we get a round of applause for the scientists that create vaccines? I mean, these are innovators. These are brave people. Brave because their lives are under threat in this current climate, in this Trump regime. Vaccines save lives. Vaccines are American. Vaccines are patriotic. If you invented a vaccine that helps people from a deadly disease, you should be celebrated. You should be a very important person. And in the past, that's how it was. You know, if you made a vaccine that had the cure to something, you would get a prize. You would be recognized for your work. You would be a hero. And nowadays, if you make a vaccine, well, you know, you could be imprisoned.
On another topic, alligator Alcatraz. Last week, a judge
This is fucking insanity. Like the fact that he just spoke those words. And another topic, alligator Alcatraz. Like, what fever dream are we living through that alligator Alcatraz is a word, is a topic that's brought up now?
Environmental concerns lawsuit said that the administration had 60 days to wind down operations there, state officials did. Now, the administration has not been shy in fighting back against what it calls activist judges, but why is it backing down this time?
We're not backing down. We've always said that we are going to continue to fight in the court of law for what's right, because we know that what this administration...
How can you say with a straight face that you're fighting for what's right by trying to keep alligator Alcatraz open? What? How can you say that? And I know your justification is, well, that's the place where we're harboring violent criminals, gang members, rapists, etc. You're literally just sending whoever there. You're sending whoever. They're mostly just undocumented migrants. Maybe you sent like one violent rapist there. 2. Maybe 6. Maybe you sent 6 violent rapists to alligator Alcatraz. Okay, but the rest of the people you've been sending there are just random men and women who are here to work. They're here to pay taxes. The sad part is, people come here to this country, they work, they pay taxes, they don't even reap the benefits of the taxes they're paying into, and yet they're still lambasted for supposedly stealing our Medicaid or stealing our votes when they can't even vote, they can't even get healthcare, they can't even buy a home. But this regime wants you to think that that's the reason you don't have healthcare, that's the reason you don't have a home, that's the reason you don't have a job. So, yeah, it is a little weird that the Trump administration has not really pushed back on trying to keep alligator Alcatraz open. It's almost like they know it's a concentration camp.
Is doing with respect to all policy, but also immigration policy, is above the books, and we're abiding by our nation's immigration laws. And we think it's despicable that an activist judge has inserted themselves in this migrant detention facility to the point where DHS is now having to relocate these illegal immigrants to other detention facilities around the country. That is an unnecessary burden on the Department of Homeland Security and these agents who should be removing these criminals from our community. That's what the American people elected this president to do. So we've always maintained, Gabe, we're going to comply with court orders, but we're also going to fight back on them on the merits of the law. And DHS is in compliance while we disagree with this decision, and we'll continue to fight it in court. Let's go to,
Hey,
Go ahead.
Thanks so much. So just following up on the CDC firing.
Sure.
Are you anticipating other changes there at CDC in addition to that firing? And is the administration going through in a very sort of organized fashion? Is there a task force that's going through?
This room is way too packed for people to not even press this administration at all. Also, it's really funny how they still yell at the people in the room. They're like, you're the fake news. You all are like the fake corporate news, whatever. In reality, all these people are just asking the most softball questions. It's like you can't label them as the fake news, and then when they're setting you up with these snowflake questions, also agree with their questioning and give answers that we're supposed to take as true. Like, are they fake news if they're just helping you out?
High-level appointees to see who is or isn't aligned with the mission? Like, should we expect more changes?
Not to my knowledge. I understand there were a few other individuals who resigned after the firing of Ms. Monarez. One of those individuals wrote in his departure statement that he identifies pregnant women as pregnant people. So that's not someone who we want in this administration anyway. So if people are not aligned with the
What does that even mean? What? He identifies pregnant women as pregnant people? Are they not people? I don't understand. Oh, it's because like you're afraid that like they're going to start saying, well, can a man get pregnant? And this administration drives me nuts. And by the way, they say we're the snowflakes. They say we're triggered. They are such sensitive little fuckers. They are so sensitive. The moment you put something gay in their peripherals or something trans in their line of sight, they shrivel up because they are so afraid of the unknown.
President's vision and the Secretary's vision to make our country healthy again, then we will gladly show them the door.
Caroline, can I just follow up on?
Go to the back.
Thank you, Caroline.
Go behind you, Andrew. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Caroline. The military deployment that President Trump has sent to the Caribbean Sea close to the shores with Venezuela is massive. It's much more that is needed to simply counter narcotics operations. Is President Trump considering launching military strikes to military installments or facilities in Venezuelan soil?
Great question, actually. In case people aren't aware, Trump has positioned 4,000 Marines near Venezuela. That is not being talked about at all in the mainstream media. Shame on all of you. What a failure. Nobody's even covering it. I mean, sure, you could probably find articles about it, but it's not getting the front page coverage. I mean, this is the no new wars president we're talking about, literally gearing up for war with Venezuela. Like, he's got 4,000 Marines ready to go. They are stationed there. They're ready to go into Venezuela. They say they're going to combat cartels. What that really means is they're going to send troops into Venezuela and go village to village, town to town, city to city, killing people.
I won't get ahead of the president with respect to any military action or questions about that ever. But what I will tell you is that many Caribbean nations and many nations in the region have applauded the administration's counter-drug operations and efforts, and the president is prepared to use every element of American power to stop drugs from flooding into our country and to bring those responsible to justice. And as
So it's no new wars, because that's what they say all the time. No new wars, America first. It's no new wars, but we do bomb Iran. And it's no new wars, but we give Israel all the money in the world to massacre people on a daily basis with our weapons. And it's no new wars, but we also can't solve the Ukraine-Russia war because we gave Russia all the leverage in the world. And it's no new wars, but we are literally going to invade Venezuela. But that's not a war. It's a military operation. It's a counter-terrorism operation to go after cartels. Same thing they're talking about doing in Mexico, by the way. They've said they want to put U.S. troops in Mexico to go after cartels. Mexico's president, Claudia Sheinbaum, basically put Trump in his place and was like, fuck you, you fucking imbecile. We are not doing that. You are not invading Mexico. She's a great leader, by the way, from the way it looks. I mean, she is the only leader that has really put Trump in his place. which is good to see.
I've said from this podium before, the Maduro regime is not the legitimate government of Venezuela. It is a narco-terror cartel. Maduro is not a legitimate president. He is a fugitive head of this drug cartel. He has been indicted in the United States for trafficking drugs into our country, and it is the utmost responsibility of this president and this administration to prevent the illicit flow of drugs into our country and to protect citizens from those deadly poisons. Reagan.
Thanks, Caroline. I have two questions for you.
Sure.
Democrats, including former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, attacked prayer and pushed gun control in the.
Oh, this should be good. I hope everyone's tuned in for this right now. She's saying there's Democrats out there who are saying that we shouldn't be praying. We need gun control. How come they're going after a prayer?
Aftermath of yesterday's shooting. What's the White House's response to their comments?
Yes, I saw the comments of my predecessor, Ms. Psaki, and frankly, I think they're incredibly insensitive and disrespectful to the tens of millions of Americans of faith across this country who.
No, you know what's incredibly sensitive and disrespectful? And ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to lose my temper. What's disrespectful to the children who were slain by guns yesterday? What's disrespectful to their families and the other victims, by the way, who are still alive but will live the rest of their lives knowing that when they were 8 and 9 and 10 years old, they watched their friends get shot to death, and they also will suffer through injuries that carry with them for years and years to come. What's disrespectful is all we are asking is for some fucking reform. All we are asking is for some fucking progress to prevent these massacres from happening, to prevent these tragedies from taking place. And so we can pray for the children who, by the way, were literally praying. They were already praying, okay? So clearly just praying isn't doing enough for those children. We can do more for the children than just sit on our hands and knees like little fucking cowards, little babies, because we are completely compromised by the NRA and the gun lobby. We can do more for the fucking children in America than just say thoughts and prayers. It's that simple. But let's hear the rest of your non-answer.
Believe in the power of prayer, who believe that prayer works, and who believe that in a time of mourning like this, when beautiful young children were killed while praying in a church, it's utterly disrespectful to deride.
You don't even believe the shit you're saying, or you do believe it, but you know you're a sick fuck, Caroline. You are a sick motherfucker. You are so sick because these children are just martyrs to you. And by the way, now MAGA is trying to completely deflect away from the real issue, which is guns. And that's common sense for any American who has eyes, ears, and a brain. And they're trying to say, well, it's because of trans violence. This is an epidemic of trans violence. That's not a fucking thing, okay? What's happening are trans people experience violence because they're constantly being demonized. We live in a country where if you're gay or transgender, you have to fear for your life on a daily basis because of sick fucks like Caroline Leavitt, who are either religious bigots or they use religion as a tool for their extremism.
The power of prayer in this country, and it's disrespectful to the millions of Americans of faith. And I would encourage Ms. Psaki to pray for these families themselves, who need it right now more than ever.
She's such a bad actor. Listen to the way like her voice is quivering. She's like pretending that she cares about the children. If you care about the children, Caroline, why can't we just pass some sensible gun safety reform? And then you've got Fox News host Sean Hannity. He goes on his little Fox News channel. He's a real tough guy. He's a real smart aleck, Sean Hannity. And he goes, well, these type of things would be prevented if there were metal detectors at the schools. Well, they weren't at a school. They were at a church. And the gunman shot the children with a gun through the windows. So they'll probably say, well, the churches need metal detectors too, and we should have bulletproof windows. And we also need to make sure that teachers have guns, but principals also need to have guns. And maybe the parents should just have guns as well. Their solution is always, we need more guns. And that's how you know that they are completely compromised by money relevant to the gun industry, because they would love it if everybody bought a gun and everybody had guns, and they want us to kill ourselves. They want us to kill ourselves. They want us to shoot ourselves. Well, under my watch, that is not the America that we are going to be living in anymore. I am beyond tired of this. This is something that, my generation has personally experienced for far too long now. I'm only a few years removed from school myself, and I recently worked as a part-time mentor at a public school. We actually had a false alarm, but there was a potential gun emergency at the school I was teaching at, and I had to go into lockdown because of that. Enough, okay? Enough. So when the midterms hopefully swing the pendulum back in the other direction, it's time to seriously ban weapons of war, that's for sure, and then go after the real issue, which is guns. Make sure that it's not easier to buy a gun than it is to get a car, than it is to get your driver's license. This doesn't happen in other countries. This doesn't happen in other parts of the world. So we love talking about American exceptionalism, like we're the greatest country in the world. Well, we're the only country where we fucking shoot each other to death all the time. But we're great Christians and the Second Amendment, blah, blah, blah. Enough.
My second question for you is that there have been media outlets who have glazed over the fact that the shooter was confused in their gender identity. Does the administration believe that this
Let's talk about the gender identity of the shooter. Of course. How could we forget?
element needs to be investigated in the shooting?
All of the elements are being investigated in the shooting, absolutely. Which is why part of the reason the FBI director came out and immediately confirmed that facet of the investigation. John.
The facet of the investigation. The facet that they might have identified as a different gender, which most likely is not relevant information at all. But it's very relevant for this Banshee and her army of goons to get you to stop thinking about guns and have you think about trans. Because the more immigrants they kick out of the country, the more they're going to need to pivot to something else, because they're going to say, we got all the immigrants out, but the reason you still don't have a home, and the reason you still can't afford health insurance, and the reason you still can't get a job, it's because of trans. It's because of gay. Because the gay, trans, woke communists are making it that way for you. They're making it so you can't buy a home. That's why now we need to go after trans and gay, woke ideology. And if we do that, then you'll get a home. It's like that Nirvana album cover. They just keep waving a dollar sign in front of your face, and they're just hoping that you just keep swimming towards it.
Thanks a lot, Carolyn. Two questions on two separate issues. First of all, the drone and missile strikes that took place overnight in Ukraine. General Keith Kellogg, the president's special envoy, has described these attacks as egregious. Do you agree with that description, and do you view President Putin as an impediment to getting peace between these two countries?
Well, it's not a
Decent question. I'm going to start rating their questions. I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. The reason why I respect the question is because you're hammering this administration on a crucial point. There's no peace deal. And every time Trump says a peace deal is coming, Putin bombs more innocent civilians in Ukraine. And he's doing so because he doesn't plan on making a peace deal. And he's stringing Trump along. Trump is also stringing the American people along, and he's prolonged this war.
about if I agree, it's about what the president thinks, and I know what the president thinks because I talked to him about this. He was not happy about this news, but he was also not surprised. These are two countries that have been at war for a very long time. Russia launched this attack on Kyiv, and likewise, Ukraine recently dealt a blow to Russia's oil refineries. They have taken out, as a matter of fact, 20% of Russia's oil refinery capacity over the course of their attacks throughout the month of August. So the president is continuing to watch this intently, and this killing, unfortunately, will continue as long as the war continues, which is why the president wants it to end. And that's why he's worked harder than anyone to end this war, which would have never started if he were president. But perhaps Both sides of this war are not ready to end it themselves.
How many times can you say this war would have never happened if Trump was president? Lady, Trump is president. He's president now. The war is happening, okay? So you can't make that argument, because if that held water, then the war would end because Trump is president. Wrong. Things are getting worse and worse. People are dying, and it's not very America first to prolong this war the way Trump has.
The president wants it to end, but the leaders of these two countries need it to end and want it to end, must want it to end as well. And I think the president will make some additional statements on this later.
My second question has to do with,
Carrie,
I just had one more, if I may. It has to do with the president's intention to remove Lisa Cook as a member of the Federal Reserve Board. He is going or acting upon allegations that have been made by Trump administration official Bill Pulte. These are just allegations. She hasn't been convicted yet of any crime. Is the administration opposed to allowing Ms. Cook to have due process, to challenge what has been alleged against her?
I believe she is challenging it. I believe she just filed a lawsuit today, and Mr. Pulte has deferred those allegations over to the Department of Justice to investigate them. What I will say...
By the way, this is just another step towards Trump going after the Federal Reserve. That's all it is he's just going to slowly show you that he can fire people that he's not technically supposed to fire. The rules don't apply anymore.
Is that you had these mortgage receipts very clearly shown to the president, and he has the cause that he needs to fire this individual. He laid it out in the letter that he provided to her and to the public as well. And so we'll continue to fight this battle. Carrie.
Hi, Caroline. So the president just announced that he wants to have a convention right before the midterms next year. The DNC has countered that they too want to have a convention right before the midterms as well. What's the White House's response to that? And can you give us just a little bit of a hint or a tease here as to how the president envisions a convention for the midterms?
Look, the president...
If you didn't hear the question, well, she's acknowledging that Trump wants a Republican National Convention before the midterms, which is a bit unusual. And he's doing that, I believe, which I think is a very common sense belief, that he's doing it because he knows he's set for a landslide loss in the midterms, and it's out of desperation. It's out of another effort to try and bolster Republicans during the midterms, because Trump knows that if he loses the midterms, it would be a de facto end to the Trump presidency. Because imagine what would happen if the Democrats win back control of one or maybe both branches of Congress. And then suddenly Trump not only can't get any legislation passed, but he might be facing consequences. So obviously Trump knows his political future hangs in the balance of the midterms. That is also why he is potentially going to rig the midterms or station military at voting sites to try and intimidate people out of voting.
Put out a statement on this earlier today. I'll let him speak further on the plans that he envisions, but I think he's very proud of the accomplishments and the achievements of his administration, as he should be. The most secure border in United States history, a crackdown on crime here in our nation's capital, an attack or a reversal of the attack on our energy industry from the previous administration. As I just pointed out to you, gas prices today, this Labor Day, are the lowest they've been since Labor Day in 2020. Our economy is bringing in trillions of dollars in revenue from all over the world again. So there's so much for Republicans and for the president and for Americans across the country to be proud of, and I think the president wants to see that celebrated. But for any further details on this as they come, we'll provide you with them. Iris.
Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions on the shooting. What's the administration's message to some concerned parents across the country who might be now worried about their kids' safety in light of the latest incident?
We completely and totally understand the concerns of parents across the country. This tragedy it's heartbreaking.
The way she shifts tone is very insulting to me. She's clearly putting on an act when she talks about the children.
Parent myself, there are no words to describe just the heartbreak that these families must be enduring, which is why the president and the first lady have encouraged everyone to continue to pray for these families and these victims. And it's why this administration is focused on removing public safety threats from our communities. And in fact, I can share with all of you that last night in Washington, D.C., when arrests were being made, there was an arrest of a juvenile right here in D.C. in Ward 7 for threats to kidnap and injure, receiving stolen property, possession of a large capacity feeding device, unlawful possession of firearms and ammunition. A search warrant was executed, 7 firearms were recovered, and the juvenile was arrested after an investigation was initiated based on social media posts allegedly threatening violence towards a school. So this was a juvenile who was a risk to not just himself, but the community here in Washington, and he was removed from the community last night because of the law enforcement efforts of this administration. And I would also point to the statement of our wonderful First Lady that she released yesterday. She wrote, "The tragic mass killing in Minnesota illuminates the need for preemptive intervention in identifying school shooters. Early warning signs are often evident, with many individuals exhibiting
Somebody asked, what's this channel's objective? My objective is to completely counter mainstream media and the overall failure that we're witnessing. Even in this room with Caroline Leavitt, you have quote unquote left-wing journalists and liberal journalists who either are afraid to ask the tough questions or they cannot because their employers won't allow them to. The mission of this channel is to counter the complicity and the way our media is completely compromised by showing what's happening, reacting to the breaking news of the day and the week, but also highlighting the truth and highlighting what's really going on here in the US and around the world. Thanks for being here, Anne, by the way. I appreciate you for watching. Right now, we're taking a look at Caroline Leavitt's press conference from today. We're almost done with it, and I want to then show you the CDC walkout that's taking place, and we can talk about it. Also, this is a community, by the way, so feedback appreciated. We can talk directly. Message me. I want to know what everybody is thinking about what's happening. Let's create a community. And by the way, if you're new here, please subscribe, like the video, and share this video with one friend so more people can see the truth.
Concerning behaviors and making violent threats online prior to their actions. We encourage all Americans, as the old saying goes, if you see something, say something. If you see warning signs or threats, report it to law enforcement. This administration, federal law enforcement, will take those reports and those threats seriously. They will be treated as a law enforcement emergency, and we will act accordingly.
And on the First Lady's statement, would the administration consider ramping up resources on these fronts to parents and schools across the country to help them look into these signs and prevent more tragedies?
It's a very fair question, Iris. As for any potential future policy decisions or funding questions, it's just been over 24 hours since this tragedy occurred. Right now, we're focused on the FBI and their investigation and uncovering all the facts, and we'll leave those very important policy discussions.
Also, notice how every time one of these shootings happen, they're like, don't make it political, just pray, pray, pray. And then you would think in a week's time or 2 weeks' time that it would be time to get political. Like, okay, fine, maybe don't get political like immediately, but then can we get political like a week later so we can actually do something? But then they forget about it, or they say either it's too soon still. And by the way, I meant just, chatting. Like, you can chat the way you are. I see your chat. And moving forward too, I'm going to put the chat on the screen as well. So the chat is going to be part of the visual experience for everybody too, because usually there's a lot of chatters. Maybe it's better when I go live earlier in the day, but just had a busy schedule today. Wanted to make sure I got to it though. But yeah, I see your messages when you're sending them in the chat. But if you ever have something, business related or something important, you can also email me. That's in my description.
Discussions to another day.
Thank you, Caroline.
Go ahead. Megan.
I had a question about the Lisa Cook lawsuit that you mentioned. Sure. Does the president plan to wait until that lawsuit is resolved to appoint her replacement?
I will leave that to the president to make that decision and that announcement himself. Brian.
Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions. Bouncing off the CDC situation with CDC. I'm curious if administration officials are pushing back on the president's agenda, privately, publicly, however, should they fear to lose their jobs going forward?
Look, I think if you're doing your job well, and if you are executing on the vision and the promises that the president made to the public who elected him back to this office, then you should have no fear about your job. Just do your job. That's what this president wants to see. He wants to see people solving problems. He wants to
now you can tell, like, the media, they're trying to like phrase questions in a way where they're not trying to piss Caroline off, but they're trying to get like a fake answer. And you read between the lines of what she's saying too. She's like, oh, well, people aren't going to get fired if they do a good job. It's like, well, yeah, obviously, but like in your framework, that means they can't push back. They can't share the truth. It only has to be the Trump truth.
To see the people who have the privilege of serving the American taxpayer and the federal government abiding by the wishes of the American taxpayers who overwhelmingly reelected him in this cabinet to make America great again, or in this case, make America healthy again.
On the Intel deal, where the U.S. got a stake in that company, there's two things I want to ask about that. The first is, what did the U.S. get back in return for that deal? And the second thing is, what are the future plans for giving any form of money to another company? It could be through the CHIPS Act, like this deal, or some other form of funds. What are the plans there by this YS administration?
Well, look, as you know, Brian, very well, because you cover it often, the Intel deal is still being ironed out by the Department of Commerce. The T's are still being crossed, the I's are still being dotted. It's very much still under discussion. But the president's thinking, I can share with you, is certainly to ensure that the United States government is making our country wealthy again and is benefiting from some of these deals. And it's a creative solution. I know it's outside the box thinking, which is uncommon in this city, but it's something that he proposed and something that the Secretary of Commerce is working on putting into action. Mary.
Thanks, Caroline. I have a couple questions on the shooting yesterday.
She's the worst. Here's Mary. This is Mary. She's like the super nice Christian girl. Like everything in this country needs to be like perfect and Christian vibes. By the way, no disrespect to Christianity. It's just that it's her vision. She shares the vision of Caroline Leavitt that everyone in America must be a Christian. That we're not a freedom of religion country. We're a Christian nation, one nation under the Christian God. Let's listen to her very Christian question here.
The first one, this is the second shooting involving a trans-identifying shooter who specifically targeted Christians and Catholic kids.
What did I tell you? Her question is about how this shooting was like an anti-Christian shooting, which I don't think is necessarily true. I think it's more random than that. Like it could have been any school. I don't think this shooter necessarily had it out for Christians. I think they were just a sick and violent individual.
What kind of consequences do the gender-affirming therapists, doctors, or even the parents of these shooters face after these types of shootings?
Well, as for the parents...
Hang on, I want to make sure I record this. I want to run this back real quick. Let's listen to her.
Involving attractions on the
Secretary of Commerce is working on putting into action. Mary.
Thanks, Caroline. I have a couple questions on the shooting yesterday. The first one, this is the second shooting involving a trans-identifying shooter who specifically targeted Christians and Catholic kids.
Okay, well, if it's the second time this has happened, you're saying, how are you going to also tell us that there's an epidemic of trans violence, of trans shooters going after Christians, when you're admitting to us that this doesn't happen that much? And by the way, trans people in America make up such a microscopic amount of the population, yet you want us to believe that there's an epidemic of trans violence and that going through gender-affirming care, gender-affirming surgery somehow makes people violent?
What kind of consequences do the gender-affirming therapists, doctors, or even the parents of these shooters face after these types of shootings?
So she's asking if we should prosecute the doctors, the surgeons who are trying to potentially help save lives. Think about it. Imagine if you're, somebody that is so depressed because you are transgender and you are trying to get the care that you need, the surgery, the care, the life affirming care that you need. And she's saying we should prosecute, arrest these people, make them responsible for the shootings. What? All you're doing is encouraging violence against your fellow Americans who happen to be trans. That is all you're doing right now. But you are pretending that's not what you're doing in the name of Christianity. And in your version of white Christian nationalism, you're perfectly fine using the Bible to go after trans people.
Well, as for the parents and potential therapists in this case, again, all of that is still currently being investigated by the FBI. I know the Secretary of Health and Human Services this morning said that HHS is investigating perhaps links between some of these drugs and these prescription drugs that some of these minors may be taking and an increase in violence. And obviously we have mental health problems in this country that this administration...
If we have mental health problems in this country, why do we consistently cut funding? I'm talking about you, Caroline. I'm talking about the MAGA cult. Why are we always stripping funding away from mental health resources? Hey, the big, beautiful bill cut tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars from billions, to be frank, from this funding for mental health services, from public safety services. Ironically, they're defunding the police, if you think about it. And yeah, good point. It is kind of weird that they're aiming at trans people, but it's not, because they do this all the time. It's just weird. It's weird in the sense that it's fucked up. It's weird in the sense that it's not at all what's going on. So it feels weird, but it's not weird for them, because this is something that they want. They are thrilled when a trans person murders people, because now they can put this towards their extremism.
And Secretary Kennedy will continue to speak out about and the work that we're doing to solve it.
Thank you. And just to follow up, I've seen a lot of calls for action, among these lawmakers saying that we shouldn't just be praying. One that I've seen on the right actually is calls for the FBI to institute a new class of domestic terrorism that involves trans ideology. Is that something that the administration would support?
Trans terrorists. We have trans terrorists now. That's insane. That's insane. Let's not go after the real cause of domestic terrorism in this country, which is white Christian nationalism. Time and time again, we see these shootings are done by fucked up white boys who write manifestos about how they want to murder Jews and black people and Hispanics. They want to murder all these people who aren't white and Christian. And then they go out and do it. They kill black people at supermarkets. They kill Jewish people at synagogues, Muslim people at mosques, brown school children at predominantly Hispanic schools. And this happens all the time. And we always say, well, can we label this as domestic terrorism, please? Because they literally wrote in a manifesto about how they wanted to do this for years and how they were inspired to do this by QAnon or by Trump or Alex Jones or you name them. And they never get charged with domestic terrorism. They never get charged with hate crimes. And this time, because it was a trans person, possibly, we don't even know really. Now we're talking about making trans terrorism a thing? What? That should be a thing for trans people who are killed, who are targeted by you fake holier-than-thou Christians.
I would have to check with the appropriate people on that.
Caroline.
Daniel.
Thank you, Caroline. We saw some new revised economic data come out today showing the U.S. economy moved at a 3.3% clip, largely buoyed by a surge in capex. What's the White House reaction to this, and is this sort of the president's vision beginning to come to life after the Big Beautiful Bill was passed in July?
Yes, look, we did say that once the Big Beautiful Bill was signed into law, we're going to see the effects of this massive pro-growth piece of legislation. As I laid out for you as we head into the Labor Day weekend, there's many positive economic indicators that the American people can be hopeful about. But don't forget, we are reversing 4 years of reckless spending from the previous administration, of slamming regulations down the throats of American business owners and consumers across the country. But the administration is working very hard to unravel all of that and to ensure that small business owners and workers are thriving and that they have more money in their own pockets to spend. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Caroline. Back on the CDC, there was reporting that some of the initial problems between RFK and the CDC director stemmed from miscommunications or differences on vaccine policy. So I wonder if you could just say whether or not the president believes that the COVID vaccine should be available to and covered by insurance for all Americans, regardless of age and pre-existing conditions.
What I will tell you is that the FDA recently revoked the emergency youth authorizations for 3 COVID vaccinations while simultaneously greenlighting 4 new COVID-19 vaccines with 2025 and 2026 formula.
It's a very awkward topic for this administration, because Trump wants to take credit for the fact that he oversaw Operation Warp Speed and was responsible for getting the vaccines together during COVID, which in reality, scientists put that shit together and Trump was just president at the time. And then really it was the Biden administration that facilitated the rollout of these vaccines. Remember, the vaccines didn't really come out until the Biden presidency. I mean, they were out, but it was like by the time Biden became president was when they were going out in mass to people, making sure that the numbers started to drop in terms of fatalities, in terms of hospitalizations. It's a very fine line for this administration. This is a very interesting thing because on the one hand, Trump wants to take credit for it, and Trump believes in vaccines. He says vaccines are good, and most people in the administration are pretty fine with them. But on the other hand, they have to cater to this part of their base that is very anti-vax, and this part of their base that's conspiracy theorists, and they say the vaccines cause autism. Think of RFK Jr. And so Caroline's like, you know, she feels uncomfortable. You can tell when she's asked these kind of things because like she knows she's got to say the vaccines are still available and stuff, but they're also going to turn around and tell you that vaccines give you autism, that COVID was created in a lab by George Soros and the Democrats, and Elon Musk says don't get the jab, etc. It's a very disturbing topic for this administration.
Was the reason for the revocation of that emergency youth authorization is because obviously the COVID pandemic and the public health emergency is over. But just to correct the record, because there's been a lot of misinformation on this, the FDA's decision does not affect the availability of COVID vaccines for Americans who want them. We believe in individual choice. That's a promise both the president and the secretary have made, and it's a promise they have now delivered on.
Question if I could, Caroline. Second question if I could, sorry. I wonder if you could answer why the president hasn't acknowledged the shooting at CDC headquarters that took place earlier in August, where a police officer was killed, and it was reported that the motivation for the shooting was somebody who was really unhappy with the effects of the COVID vaccine.
We absolutely were very much aware of that shooting. The Secretary of Health and Human Services put out a statement immediately. He was in touch with the CDC, and he actually traveled to Georgia to assess the situation.
No, I got to push back on that. And yeah, I mean, there's during, trials and there's been like very acute instances of people who are affected negatively by, let's say, the COVID vaccine, because I think that's what you're referencing. Like less than 1% of people have experienced side effects. And overwhelmingly, the vaccine reduced deaths, it reduced hospitalizations. The point was for the vaccine to reduce the spread, which it did, and way less people die every single week as a result. So overall, the vaccines were a very good thing. And everybody I know took it. Millions of people have taken it. It's been overwhelmingly fine.
And to mourn with the people who work in that building there. So, go ahead.
With respect to Labor Day, one of the most underrepresented groups right now are police officers. 30,000 police officers short in America right now. To Brandon's question, 1,300 short in Chicago, 3,000 short in New York, 500 short here in Washington, D.C. What can the White House, what can the president do to help recruitment of police officers?
It wasn't a scandemic. People lost their lives. I know people who were seriously affected. Was not a scamdemic. My entire college education was disrupted by it. People around the world were dying. And by the way, other countries didn't suffer as much as our country because other countries collectively decided, hey, we're going to look out for our fellow countrymen and women by not going out to massive parties and ragers while there's a literal respiratory virus going around. It's a type of virus. It's a flu. It's a real disease. So no, it was not a scam. I completely detest that way of thinking. That is not based in fact at all.
It's done well with the military and border patrol. What can be done to get more police officers on the streets of America?
Well, the president has certainly been very successful in recruiting federal law enforcement. If you look at the ICE recruitment campaign that was led by he and our Secretary of Homeland Security, we've seen more than, I believe, 130,000 applicants to join ICE, which is just amazing. There's more applicants now than there are jobs to fill, and we're very grateful for that. Clearly, Americans want to serve their communities. They just need a leader who encourages them to do so. So maybe Governor Pritzker should spend less time demonizing the police, more time trying to recruit more police, and more time trying to call the President of the United States to get crime in his city under control. The President wants to allow law enforcement, whether it's state, local, federal, to do their jobs, to arrest criminals, to put them behind bars, and to remove public safety threats from American communities. He'll continue to do that. Thank you, guys.
What a disgrace. What a sad disgrace. Folks, I think I'll call it there for today. I know it's kind of a later hour. Moving forward, it looks like more people are available during the morning hours. I've been doing my stream, which usually is 10 a.m. local time for me, but 1 p.m. Eastern time. But thank you for being here today. Really appreciate your support. Hey, if you're still watching this long, make sure you like this video, even though I'm about to end the show, because the like still helps get the word out there. Subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't miss a video. You can watch my other videos on the channel as well. So there's tons of videos about everything happening in the world. I'll even be uploading more videos later tonight. And I'm a completely independent content creator. The show has no funding, so if you want to support me directly, financially, you can do so via buymeacoffee.com. I am not on the list of Democrats who are supposedly getting paid, which was an article that came out. So anyway, I'm not being funded by the Democrats. This is an independent show. I mean, independent political commentator. So like I said, if you want to support my work directly, helps pay for equipment, helps support the show, you can do so. Buy Me a Coffee or Venmo are both linked in the description of this video. And follow me on other socials, TikTok, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, you name it. Thank you so much for being here today. Stay well, stay vigilant, and fight the fascist Trump regime.